Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast, the resource for transitional and experienced genealogists who want to create a successful business. I'm your host, Miriam Pierre-Louis. Here you'll learn from professionals all around the world who work in the field of genealogy. Are you ready to get started? Then let's get going. Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast. Today we head north to Toronto, Canada, to get to know genealogist Lynn Palermo. Lynn, welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast.
Thank you, Marion.
Let's get started by having you tell us about yourself and give us an overview of your genealogy business.
My name is Lynn Palermo, and I blog about researching your family history at the Armchair Genealogist. I also am the founder of the Family History Writing Studio, where I provide family historians with tools in the form of online courses, workbooks, and coaching to help them transition from genealogist to family history writer.
Tell us a little bit about how you got interested in genealogy to start with, and then tell us about what was the spark that made you want to start a business around it.
I actually left my first life as a restaurant manager and became a stay-at-home mom. The reason for doing that was my family was going through a bit of a transition, and my husband had lost both his parents within a 1-year span. And so that kind of shook the family up. It obviously motivated my desire to learn more about our history before I lost my own parents. So I became a stay-at-home mom, and that initiated and gave me the time to start my genealogy research. And at the same time, I was also playing around with writing. So the two of them just sort of fell together. I actually was on a writing forum one day, and I was asking a published writer, how I could break into the industry. And she said, start a blog. And to start a blog about something that you're passionate about. And so the Armchair Genealogist began.
So I have to ask you, with a name like Palermo, I'm assuming that's your husband's last name?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so where did the name Palermo take you in your research? Did you go back to Italy when you were researching your husband's family?
Actually, I haven't researched my husband's family.
Lynn.
Isn't that terrible? Well, yeah, I know, because my husband is actually the firstborn Canadian. So his history is pretty recent. He never even met his grandparents. There's a little bit of a roadblock there now, hence why I was in such this state when his parents died, because they took a lot of it with them. But that motivated me to do to my own side. We did have the opportunity to travel to Italy with his father and to meet the family over there and to make a connection with that family. So that was something that we were lucky to have. And it has put me in the position now that when I am ready to research his family roots, I have a connection there to begin with. So,
And I just want to mention here for those of you who are in the same kind of situation as Lynn, with maybe a branch of your family, and that either they're recent immigrants or maybe they were 20th century immigrants from Eastern Europe and you just can't get back, really, really focus on that oral history to try and get started a little bit. So you went and you took the published author's advice and you started a blog. Where did it take you next, and how long was it until you got published?
Blogging definitely gave me the opportunity to develop my writing. I probably, prior to that, I dabbled in it, and I probably had this sort of romantic idea about being a writer. And I probably had a little bit of a self-confidence issue in terms of, could I be a writer? Was it this inherent skill you had to have, or could I learn it? But through blogging, I definitely realized that it is a skill that you can develop through practice. And then blogging certainly gave me a platform to move my business forward. And when I started the blog, I definitely had the idea that I wanted this to develop into a business. Did I have the big picture of what that business was going to be yet? No. That came along the way, and I had to be patient and sort of get to know the online genealogy community and also my readers, my platform, and what they were looking for.
So what was that first article that you published?
So my first published article was with Family Chronicle. I published an article on how to use genealogy professionals and to choose a genealogy professional to extend your research.
And what was it like when you contacted Family Chronicle? Did you know the folks there before you sent an email? How did you approach them? What did you say to them to say, hey, I want to write for you?
What I actually did was I prepared the article in advance. I spent a lot of time making sure it was absolutely perfect. And then I sent the article along with an introduction letter. I hit send, and I was extremely nervous and really worried about being rejected. Within an hour, I received an email back, and they had accepted my article.
And is that the approach that you would continue to take now?
Not necessarily, no. Now I think that my name is well enough known that I could put queries together without having to write the entire article. But I've really veered away a lot from the article writing, and I've really gotten more into self-publishing. I really feel that that is the way to go if you're a new. It was good experience, absolutely, to work with the magazine. But once I got that experience, I really wanted to get into the self-publishing. I didn't want to wait for that approval to publish.
So how did you first learn about self-publishing, and then what did you do to research the process of how you would make that happen?
A lot of online research. I read a lot of blogs. I bought a lot of books. I really just self-taught in terms of self-publishing. You kind of have to just dive in, and you have to do it. You have to move through that first book that you print and learn the process, and then each subsequent book will get better and better.
So what was the hardest part about self-publishing that first book?
There's two different styles of publishing that I have approached. One is I published my family history. I did that with a cousin. We did a 200-page book with my Canvas publishing software. But then I've also done self-publishing on Amazon with my family history writing workbooks. There were two different styles in terms of, one was a software. It was just for our private family. It was very difficult to do. It was a year in the making in terms of just putting the book together and the writing and the formatting of the book. And the other book, I guess the workbook took quite a while as well, because it was my first stab at self-publishing with CreateSpace and Amazon. But once I got through that process now, I've done 3 other books since then, and each one gets a little bit faster and a little bit more professional each time.
What exactly does CreateSpace do for you before it hits the for sale shelf on Amazon?
So CreateSpace is their platform for on-demand publishing, so for your print books. So what you can do is you create your book and you then format it into a PDF and you upload it to CreateSpace. You also have to produce a cover. They will offer professional services to help you do that as well, but you would have to pay for those. But once you upload it, then they will send you a proof and you can take a look at it and you can make your adjustments. But once everything is good to go, then they upload it to Amazon's site and you are allowed to sell it worldwide. You're also allowed to order copies for print that then you can take to perhaps conferences to sell.
And is CreateSpace just for printed books?
Well, what they will do is once you've finished your print book, then they'll then ask you, would you like to now format this for Kindle publishing? And then they'll take you through that process as well to then format it into a Mobi product for Kindle.
So is there only the Kindle format available on Amazon, or can you just buy it as a PDF as well?
You can buy it as a PDF from the Family History Writing Studio in a download format.
Oh, okay, so not through Amazon.
Not through Amazon.
Okay.
So I sell the print book on Amazon, and I sell the PDF version on my website.
So it sounds like you had a whole new skill set you had to learn here in order to tackle this self-publishing.
Absolutely, yes.
Did you take any courses or anything like that, or was it just really self-reading that you did sort of online?
For the most part, it was online reading and books. I bought a great deal of books, and I looked at a lot of different publishers who were explaining how they did it. And it is just a lot of playing around with it and finding the right process for you that works.
All right, so let's talk about your writing business as opposed to the books that you've published. Tell us about the courses and the things that you're offering now as your business offerings.
What I offer at the Family History Writing Studio is a variety of workbooks, online courses, and coaching to help people to learn to write their family history stories in a little bit more of a creative narrative format, rather than that dry narrative that we have become accustomed to. So I help people to take a look at the events in their ancestors' life and shape them into scenes so that they come to life on the page. We use what's called creative nonfiction. And so I help to sort of introduce those elements to my readers and help walk them through that writing process.
And I see you have personal coaching on your website as well. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
We all need feedback when it comes to our writing. So what I get is people who want me to read their stories and give them some feedback. Is it structured properly? Does it make sense? And it's sometimes best to get someone outside of your family, because family tends to be a little bit biased and say, yes, it's very good. What usually happens is sometimes we do a Skype interview such as this, and we just talk about what it is they're struggling with. And sometimes they'll send maybe 5 or 6 pages of what they've written and have me take a look at it. I do courses online. So what happens is when you sign up online, the course begins usually on Tuesday morning. There is sort of a classroom area on the website that's only accessible to the students in the course. And I will upload videos, articles, and each week they will get a lesson. And then usually with that lesson comes an assignment, because we need to put it into practice. And then in addition, we have a forum. So the students will come over to the forum and we'll discuss what was in the lesson that week. We will upload our assignments. We will give each other feedback. And then I will also give feedback to all the students. We just finished writing a family history scene, which was a fabulous course. We really had a lot of fun. The students loved it. It went over very well. And basically, they identified a scene in their family history, and we wrote a scene around it, taking it layer by layer, starting with what the action is, and then adding the description and the setting and theme to it. So they really saw their writing transition from the first week to the last week.
And the students in the class, do they share what they write with everyone else in the class so you get feedback from the other students as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's key. I really impress upon everybody to become part of a writing group. I think the best growth that I've ever had in my writing career was being part of a writing group and getting feedback from other people, because ultimately you are writing for a reader. And so these students, they become readers of your work. And so if they don't understand something, or something doesn't sit right, or something's not translating, who better than the reader to tell you that?
I can see that you had to pull together a whole bunch of skills that you didn't necessarily have when you went down this path. So we've already talked about self-publishing, which we know you did massive amounts of research to figure that out. Mm-hmm. And now I can hear that you put together a website with a membership component and a forum component. And as a restaurant manager, I'm pretty sure you didn't have the time to acquire those skills.
No.
How did you figure out that piece of your business?
Again, it's just self-education. It was, and I'm still figuring it out. I still wouldn't say it's exactly where I want it to be, but there's always confines of time and space and money. But I try to put together the best that I can for where the business is right now. But again, it's a lot of self-education, a lot of playing around with it. Those first couple of classes, they were a little bumpy, and I got a lot of feedback from the students, and we just corrected along the way. And I think the important thing is just you need to step out there and do it and take the risk and learn from it and just keep moving forward.
your platform is a blog, so that's international. I mean, you're using English, but it can reach the entire world. How does that translate into where your students come from?
We have students from Canada, US, Australia, Germany. And what's nice about the platform is because a lot of students will ask that, well, if I'm in Australia and they're in a different time zone, are we going to be online at one time together? Because that makes it very difficult. But that is not the case. You come online when you're ready, you download the classes, you go to the forum, you ask the questions when you're ready. So it works for all time zones. There's two courses on the website right now, plotting your family history story and writing a family history scene. Those will come with coursework. Those particular courses, they build on each other each week. So it's important to do the coursework each week and come to the forum so that you're starting at A in week 1 and you're going to get, much further down the road by the time we get to week 6. Now, with the other course, creating a legacy family history book, it's going to be a little bit different in that there won't be specific coursework for that. We are showing people how to use the My Canvas software to create a legacy family history book. So each week we will go in and we will show you some new elements of the software and how to create some beautiful pages for your own book, how to write some narrative, how to organize the book. So each week we hope that you'll walk away and you'll play with those features and ask your questions in the forum. But there won't be specific assignments for that particular course.
And the other 2 courses are set up so that you can take the writing the family history scene first, and then when that finishes, you can take the plotting a family history story?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay,
because
great.
It's extremely important to understand scene and summary before you begin to plot the story.
How do you tackle the video component? Like, what software do you use?
There was a huge learning curve with the video, no question. So each class, it might be anywhere from a 20-minute to a 45-minute video presentation. When I first started and I was doing a 45-minute video, I would try to sit there and spill out the whole content in 45 minutes without making a mistake. And then I realized I can't keep doing that. So I learned a little bit more about the software and how to do some editing on the software and to break my video down into chunks and split it together. And it definitely was a learning process, but I'm definitely much faster at it now.
You probably developed some systems, some
Absolutely.
tricks to not mess up so much.
Absolutely, yes, definitely.
Do you use Camtasia or do you use a different software?
I use Screencast.
Okay, so Screencast is the one that has a free option, but that also has a pro option. Is that a software or is it the online?
I have both. I use the pro option because that gives you more of the editing abilities.
Because I know a lot of people probably don't have any idea about video software, so I'm just going to mention it here. I have 2 different software, one of which I know how to use and the other one I don't know how to use. I use Camtasia. Camtasia is over $300, so it is a barrier for people, and that's one of the cheaper ones. I also have Adobe Premiere Pro, which I bought as part of a production suite back in the day when Adobe wasn't an online service, but it's considerably harder to learn, and Camtasia is so easy in comparison, so I still haven't shifted over to using Premiere Pro, though there would be definite advantages to doing it because it has much, much greater capability. I'm not familiar with Screencast. Do you just pay once or do you have to keep paying monthly?
Yeah, I pay a yearly fee for it, under $50.
Oh, okay. So that's a really good option.
Absolutely. It's a great starting point for people, for sure.
And is it relatively easy to figure out how to use? Because I think that's one of the biggest problems with video software is just figuring out how to use it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it is. I looked at Camtasia. I looked at a variety of them, and there was a couple things I had to identify. How quickly was I going to be able to learn it and use it? Could I afford it at this point in my business? At this point now, I also think that maybe, I would like to go to something maybe a little more elevated, but again, another learning curve, right, that you throw in there, and you tend to get a little comfortable with some of the programs you use. But I do feel it's important to, keep pushing yourself forward. And also the thing you should mention about videos is even though you make the video, you can't just throw it up on your website. because it will slow down your website considerably.
Not only will it slow down your website, you actually might get booted off your host for breaking the terms of service.
A lot of people use YouTube, but if you want to start keeping them on your own website, then you really have to have a hosting company for that. And I use Wistia for that.
We start out with this passion. You wanted to write. You fell in love with writing. You wanted to share that with other people. You wanted to help other people with writing. But look at how complicated it's gotten. You can't just share your love of writing with other people. You've been forced into all these different directions.
Absolutely. And I always say about that, you think that if you're a writer, well, it's just about communicating in writing what your passion, but it's not. The online industry is more than just writing, so you have to learn it.
So what's been the hardest part for you in learning new skills in your business, beyond the writing? If you had to pick one thing, what would you say was the hardest thing to figure out?
Website design, for sure. Finding the right software that would do everything that I wanted it to do and, was relatively easy to manage. And yeah, I would say that was probably the most difficult. Then the other thing that I think is that I had to learn a lot about was branding as well. I think that's extremely important. I think it's something that we're lacking in terms of our genealogy industry.
So do you do all of this on your own? Because this is the big question that's looming. Or do you hire consultants on occasion as needed? Do you have any part-timers that help you? Or do you just do this whole thing yourself?
I'm pretty much a lone wolf, although I tap into a few people in an inner circle that help me. I've always been an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. My brother's an entrepreneur. So if we have any ideas, we tend to bounce them off each other. In terms of branding and marketing, I have two daughters, 20 and 25. One's got a Bachelor of Commerce, and one is in her fourth year of communication design. So I definitely bounce a lot of ideas off of them in terms of branding and marketing and keeping the website fresh. And that rolls right into your writing. Even if you write something, you can't be your own editor. You have to have someone else that will read that story and tell you whether it's working or not working.
I noticed that you also do some volunteering for the Norfolk Historical Society in Ontario. Tell us a little bit about what you do for them.
Well, I am a board director for them. So I sit on many committees, too many probably. I am their chair for their annual Family History Fair in September, Norfolklore. I am also their social media manager. I look after their website. So I have a lot of balls in the air. And I do need to correct you on one thing. I am in Simcoe, Ontario, which is about an hour and a half south of Toronto. So that is where the Norfolk Historical Society is. We are situated in the Eva Brooke Donnelly Museum in Simcoe.
So would people consider Simcoe part of Greater Toronto the way that perhaps where I live is part of Greater Boston, or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
Which came first, social media and marketing for Norfolk Historical Society or social media and marketing for yourself? Did you start in the volunteer position over there?
I started, with my blog and business first. I wanted to help locally. The Norfolk Historical Society is 115 years old. So you can imagine we have a really large collection. So I wanted to help with research there as well and sort of keep my hand involved in researching, even though I'm very much, involved in writing. They were in need of some help in terms of the technical side of things and social media. They're a little slow to the party, so I'm bringing them along.
When you offered to help them with the social media and you brought a lot of skills to the table that they could use, was there resistance? Did they just say, Lynn, go for it? Or did they say, okay, go for it, but what exactly are you going to do?
That very first meeting that I went to, and I was sort of spilling these ideas to them, and one just turned to me and says, I have no idea what you're talking about. They weren't resistant to it, but they certainly weren't familiar with it. And I still have board members who are not even on Facebook. It's an uphill battle for sure. They trust what I'm doing, but at the same time, they're not knowledgeable about it. And so, it is social media. So I'm trying to get them all involved.
So Lynn, what's the most fun project that you've ever worked on?
There's two things. First would be my own family history book that we did. It was so rewarding it was such an unbelievable journey, and it's really what propelled me into the whole writing and sharing that with the online community. But now, since I've been doing the classes, particularly we just had this last class with writing a family history scene, and it was such a fantastic class. It was just, again, so rewarding to see the students manifest into these wonderful writers right before my eyes, and to see their excitement about what was happening in their own writing. So that would be the one thing that I'm thrilled about, and looking forward to the next class with that as well.
So how, just to get back to these classes, since you mentioned that, how often do these classes run? So say somebody goes through this process of these two classes, the writing the scene and then the plotting the family history story, and they end with that euphoria and that sense of self-satisfaction. So what happens after that?
Well, there's a variety of things, actually. We did have one class that part of the class started their own writing group afterwards. So that was fantastic. They connected, and they're still together, and they come back to do more classes with me. I encourage them to go on to writing groups. So to find one at their local genealogical society or their local library, so that they continue and can find that community. They are always welcome to reach out to me. So they have a variety of options. And the other one is, a lot of them will join me in the Family History Writing Challenge in February. So we come together for February, and they get a daily lesson in their inbox. And we have a forum at that time as well, too. So I see a lot of them at that time as well.
Well, Lynn, it is time to enter the lightning round. We're going to pick up the pace a little bit. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What was the one thing you were most afraid of in starting your business?
Website design.
What's the best advice you've ever received from someone else?
Just do it. Don't worry about failing. You'll learn from the failures.
What is one specific action listeners can take in the next 24 hours to help them transition into a genealogy career?
Listen to your audience, whether that's your blog readers or people you are speaking to or your genealogical society. What are they looking for?
Do you have a productivity tool or an app that you can share with the audience?
Scrivener.
And that's a writing tool.
Oh, it's more than a writing tool. It is a project management tool.
What is the social media channel where you find the greatest connection with your students?
Facebook.
If you can recommend a book for our listeners, what would it be?
On Writing by Stephen King.
Is it scary?
No. Everybody says that. It is sort of part memoir and part instruction book on the craft of writing. It is extremely motivational, and particularly for someone who thinks that they can't write.
Give our audience one parting piece of advice and then tell us how we can get in contact with you.
Well, my one piece of advice would be to start writing now. You do not have to wait until your research is done. We can start to learn the craft of writing so that when you are ready to begin your stories, you'll have a running start. It's just like when you started your research. You didn't know everything right away. You had to learn methodology and GPS and citations. You learned it along the way. And writing is the same thing. So I encourage you to start writing immediately.
And how can people get in contact with you?
They can get in contact me at the Armchair Genealogist or at the Family History Writing Studio. My contact information is there, and I'm welcome any emails and questions.
And if they want to sign up for any courses or anything, that's on the Family History Writing Studio website.
Yes, it is.
Lynn Palermo, thank you so much for coming on the Genealogy Professional Podcast today.
Thank you, Miriam. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks to Lynn Palermo for such a great discussion. Not only did we talk about when Lynn submitted her first article, but we also covered self-publishing on CreateSpace, MyCanvas, and Kindle. Who could have imagined that when Lynn started her writing business that it would take her down the path of teaching online classes, coaching, and creating a membership site, skills that she had to figure out on her own. We also touched on the importance of branding and the challenges of volunteering in a social media role. I hope you all got as much out of this discussion as I did. Here on the Genealogy Professional Podcast, we have been releasing episodes weekly for the last 5 or 6 weeks. I just want you to know that we are not going to continue at that pace. While we don't have a set schedule yet, what you're more likely to find is that we'll do 6 episodes in a row, and then we'll take a few weeks off. Then we'll do another 6 and take a few weeks off. That will be a bit easier on us than trying to crank them out every single week. We've reached that point now. So our next episode will be in a few weeks on August 21st. On that day, we'll hear an amazing interview with NGSQ, that's the National Genealogical Society Quarterly, co-editor Melindy Lutz-Byrne. If you'd like to become a supporter of the Genealogy Professional Podcast, head over to the website at thegenealogyprofessional.com and click on the supporter button. And of course, ratings and reviews in both iTunes and Stitcher are always welcome. For your action item this week, I'd like you to do a brainstorming exercise. Think about your specific niche within genealogy. If you were to write a short ebook that you could publish as a PDF, what topic would you choose? Try to think of as many possibilities as you can. Allow yourself to go in a direction that you normally wouldn't consider. Think about your niche in very broad terms and then narrow down and think of it with very specific topics. And then, of course, write down your ideas. I hope this exercise really gets you thinking about what you do and the various ways that you can share your knowledge on the subject. I really strongly believe in brainstorming. I think it can open you up to possibilities and ideas you hadn't considered before. That's it for this time. Until we meet again, keep improving your business skills and take at least one step to push your business forward. The Genealogy Professional Podcast is a production of Fieldstone Common Media, copyright 2016. Executive producer, Marianne Pierre-Louis. Creative producer, George Edwards. Production assistant, Pam Wolos. Technical director, Jean-Luc Pierre-Louis Jr.